And at number 10, we unravel the story of a man who believed his charm was his shield, a man who became the FBI's most wanted escapee. He fled across state lines, hid in plain sight, and was finally caught because of a vehicle that didn't even belong to him. Stay tuned, because the true moment of his capture was not a grand tactical sweep, but a mundane roadside stop that changed everything. Number 10. Ted Bundy, the stolen VW Beetle. The date, February 15, 1978. The event, arrest after a routine traffic stop for a stolen car. The resolution, routine check of a stolen vehicle, led to the apprehension of the fugitive, Ted Bundy. The name Ted Bundy evokes the chilling specter of a charismatic monster, a man who weaponized good looks and social appeal to lure and destroy. By early 1978, Bundy was the most notorious fugitive in America. He had committed a string of brutal murders across multiple states, been captured, stood trial, and, unbelievably, managed to escape twice from Colorado jails. His final escape in December 1977 saw him drop 30 pounds, climb through a hole he carved in his cell ceiling, and vanish into the night. He immediately fled to Tallahassee, Florida. In Tallahassee, Bundy went on a final deadly rampage. The attacks at the Chi Omega sorority house and the murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach were desperate, violent acts committed by a cornered animal. Bundy was running out of money, resources, and luck. His most recognizable asset, his charm, was fading into gaunt desperation. His survival depended on invisibility. His plan was simple: steal a car, drive across the country, and disappear into the anonymity of the American West. On February 15, 1978, in Pensacola, Florida, Bundy was driving a stolen, brown Volkswagen Beetle. He was tired, hungry, and likely operating on pure adrenaline. He had managed to avoid capture across several states, but he was about to make a mistake that was as routine as it was fatal. Just after midnight, Pensacola police officer David Lee spotted the VW speeding. It was a mundane infraction, the kind that happens 1,000 times a night. Officer Lee pulled the car over. The driver, Bundy, was cooperative at first, but something was wrong. His license plate was incorrect, and the registration didn't match the vehicle. When the officer asked him to step out of the car, Bundy bolted. Officer Lee didn't know he was chasing the most wanted man in America, but he knew he was chasing a serious criminal. He tackled Bundy, and a short, desperate struggle ensued. Bundy was quickly subdued, handcuffed, and taken into custody. At the police station, Bundy gave a false name, Ken Misner. But the officers, following standard procedure, searched the stolen car. Inside, they found a trove of highly suspicious items: multiple driver's licenses with different names, several credit cards, maps, and, crucially, a checkbook belonging to a previous victim. A simple call to the National Crime Information Center, NCIC, confirmed the truth. The man they had arrested for stealing a car and resisting arrest was indeed the infamous Ted Bundy, escapee and serial killer. The unbelievable irony was that Bundy had escaped 2 high-security prisons and managed to cross over 1,000 miles, only to be brought down by a speeding violation in a stolen, beat-up car. His final moment of freedom was sacrificed for the arrogance of driving too fast. The routine traffic stop closed the book on one of the most terrifying criminal careers of the 20th century. Bundy's downfall was his reliance on a stolen piece of property. But how do you catch a killer who leaves no physical evidence and communicates only through taunting letters? Decades later, another monster thought he had found the perfect way to remain anonymous, using technology. But the simple act of sending an email, or rather sending a floppy disk, contained a digital fingerprint he never saw coming. Before we dive into the chilling case of the BTK killer, take a moment to subscribe and comment below. Where are you watching from? Let us know and help us continue to unravel history's darkest secrets. Number 9. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. The date, February 25, 2005. The event, Arrest after submitting a computer floppy disk to a television station. The resolution? Metadata on the disk was traced back to a specific church computer and the name Dennis Rader. For over 32 years, the citizens of Wichita lived under the shadow of a phantom. The BTK killer, bind, torture, kill, had claimed 10 victims between 1974 and 1991, but then he seemed to vanish. The case went cold, the file grew thick with unanswered questions, and the killer became a ghost story. But the BTK killer was not a ghost. He was Dennis Rader, a church council president, a respected family man, a code compliance officer for Park City, and a seemingly ordinary suburban father. He was hiding in plain sight, and his greatest weakness was his insatiable ego. In 2004, after 13 years of silence, BTK suddenly resurfaced. He began sending cryptic packages, letters, and evidence to the media and the police, clearly desperate for the notoriety and fear he felt he deserved. The media blackout that police requested only fueled his need for control. This correspondence was the beginning of his undoing. BTK established a strange, indirect dialogue with the police. In one of his messages, he asked if it was safe to communicate with investigators using a floppy disk, stating he wanted to be certain the police couldn't trace the location or the computer. The police, through a carefully placed public notice, responded, "Yes, it is safe." They were lying. They were laying a trap. In February 2005, Rader took the bait. He delivered a purple 1.44 megabyte Maxell floppy disk to a Wichita KSNW TV reporter. He believed he was using a safe, anonymous medium to taunt the authorities. But the police had anticipated this move. They immediately handed the disk over to the FBI's Technical Analysis Response Unit. This was the moment the years of silence ended, not with a bang, but with a piece of digital trace evidence the killer didn't know existed. The experts didn't care about the text files Rader had created. They were hunting for metadata, the invisible digital fingerprints that computers automatically embed into files. They didn't need a name, they just needed a location. The experts quickly found an embedded properties document on the disk. This hidden file indicated two crucial things. The document had been created by a user named Dennis, and the document had been last accessed or modified at the Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita. This tiny hidden data point was the break law enforcement had needed for decades. They had a first name, Dennis, and a location, the church. Police quickly cross-referenced the church's council and staff members named Dennis. Only one man fit the profile and had access to the church office computer, Dennis Rader. Then the police obtained a search warrant for Rader's home. Crucially, they needed DNA confirmation to secure a solid conviction. They followed Rader's daughter, Carrie, and covertly collected a DNA sample from a discarded pap smear taken from her at a university medical center. The DNA from the sample was a familial match to forensic evidence preserved from one of the BTK crime scenes. The floppy disk, the little purple plastic square Rader thought was an anonymous shield, was instead the ultimate confession, a digital breadcrumb that led the police right to his church office and eventually to his front door. Rader was arrested on February 25, 2005, and later confessed to the 10 murders. His downfall was not physical evidence or witness testimony, but the arrogance of his desire to communicate, a desire that was betrayed by a few lines of invisible computer code. Rader's digital slip-up ended 30 years of terror. But in the 1970s, police didn't have metadata. They only had the overwhelming pressure of a city in panic. The next killer on our list haunted New York City, choosing victims seemingly at random, leading to one of the largest manhunts in NYPD history. The killer's arrogance was matched only by the city's desperation. And the key to his capture? It was something so small and routine it's almost unbelievable. A parking ticket. But first, please hit that like button if you want to see more true crime deep dives like this. Number 9. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam.
Number 8. David Berkowitz,
Son of Sam, the parking ticket. The date? August 10th, 1977. The event? Arrest following an intensive investigation and witness tips connecting him to a parking violation. The resolution? A small detail about an illegally parked car near the final crime scene led police to the killer's vehicle registration. For 13 agonizing months in 1976 and 1977, New York City was paralyzed by fear. A killer, initially dubbed the .44 caliber killer by the press, was targeting young people, mostly women with long, dark hair, using a unique .44 caliber Charter Arms Bulldog revolver. When the killer began sending taunting, handwritten letters to the press and the police, he adopted the demonic pseudonym that would forever be associated with the terror, the Son of Sam. The panic was citywide. Residents changed their routines, women dyed their hair blonde, and the NYPD launched the largest manhunt in its history, known as Operation Omega. Thousands of tips came in, the pressure was immense, and the police were chasing ghosts, struggling to find any link between the seemingly random targets. The breakthrough came after the final murder. On July 31st, 1977, Son of Sam killed Stacy Moskowitz and critically injured her date, Robert Violante, in a car parked near Shore Parkway in the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn. As the police swarmed the scene, two seemingly minor, unconnected details were logged by investigators. Detail 1. The witness. A local woman named Cecilia Davis was walking her dog near the scene just before the shooting. She noticed a suspicious-looking man, short and stocky, lingering near the crime scene. Crucially, she remembered two things about him. He was holding a gun, and he was getting into a yellow Ford Galaxy. Detail 2. The mistake. A few minutes before the shooting, a local resident noticed a suspicious car parked illegally near a fire hydrant in the quiet neighborhood. Concerned, they called the police. A police officer on patrol noted a yellow, beat-up Ford Galaxy sedan parked nearby. The officer intended to write a ticket, but the patrol unit was quickly diverted by a more pressing call. However, minutes after the fatal shooting, another resident, a woman named Olga Osso, recalled seeing the same suspicious vehicle speed away from the scene. When interviewed, she specifically mentioned seeing a police car near the spot just before the shooting. The lead investigator, Captain Joseph Borelli, combined these two seemingly irrelevant facts. He focused on the area around the final murder. If a suspicious vehicle had been seen near the location and had been noticed by a police officer, there might be a record. Borelli ordered his team to comb through thousands of parking tickets issued in the Bay Ridge area around the time of the attack. It was a massive, tedious task searching for a ticket or violation related to a yellow Ford Galaxy. They eventually found it. A parking ticket issued to a Ford Galaxy just blocks from the Moskowitz-Violante murder scene a few weeks prior. The car was registered to a man named David Berkowitz, who lived in Yonkers, just north of the city, and whose address was only 10 blocks from where the very first Son of Sam attack had occurred. This single, small piece of paper, a parking ticket, provided the concrete link the NYPD had desperately searched for. On August 10, 1977, police descended on Berkowitz's address. As he was walking out of his apartment to get into his Ford Galaxy, officers surrounded him. He offered no resistance. In the car, on the passenger seat, was a brown paper bag. Inside the bag, they found the .44 caliber Charter Arms Bulldog revolver, the weapon that had terrorized the city for a year. Berkowitz looked at the arresting officers and with a strange, chilling smile, reportedly said, "Well, you got me. How come it took you so long?" The random act of parking too close to a fire hydrant, or perhaps just a police officer's instinct to record a suspicious vehicle, led to the capture of the monster that had brought New York to its knees. The massive, years-long manhunt was solved by the mundane enforcement of a traffic law. Berkowitz's hubris and the detective's patience finally won. But what happens when the killer doesn't just leave his parking ticket, but leaves his victim's remains literally backing up the plumbing of his own apartment building. Our next killer on the countdown was found out not by a detective or a witness, but by a frustrated plumber. We'll delve into the utterly horrifying case of Dennis Nilsen after this quick break. But first, take a moment to like this video and let us know your thoughts on the power of these tiny mistakes. Number 7. Dennis Nilsen, the blocked drain. The date, February 1983. The event, exposure and arrest after a plumber discovered human remains blocking the building's drainage system. The resolution? Neighbor complaints about low water pressure led to the horrific discovery of the killer's disposal method. In the history of British true crime, few names resonate with the quiet horror of Dennis Nilsen. A civil servant and former policeman, Nilsen operated in the heart of London, systematically luring, murdering, and dismembering at least 15 young men in his homes between 1978 and 1983. Nilsen was a master of superficial normalcy. He lived in unremarkable apartments, held a respectable job, and committed his crimes with an isolating silence that allowed him to go completely undetected for years. He believed he had devised the perfect disposal method, burning his victims' remains in his garden and flushing the smaller pieces down the toilet. His mistake was a monumental miscalculation of the London sewage system. Nilsen's final home was a small top-floor flat at 23 Cranley Gardens in Muswell Hill. By late 1982, his constant flushing of human remains, bones, muscle tissue, and fatty deposits was taking a toll on the old Victorian plumbing. In early February 1983, the block's drainage system began to fail. Neighbors on the ground floor complained bitterly to the landlord, demanding that the problem of the constantly overflowing sewage be fixed. The landlord, Mr. Stride, called in a maintenance worker, Michael Catron, to clear the blockage. Catron, an experienced plumber, traced the blockage to a main inspection chamber. When he lifted the manhole cover, he was hit by a horrifying smell. Inside, he found a revolting gelatinous sludge that was stubbornly resisting the usual unblocking attempts. As Catron started to clear the mess, he pulled out something white and rubbery, roughly the size of a thumb. Thinking it was some kind of peculiar chicken bone, he showed it to his supervisor, who then showed it to the landlord. They discarded it as strange, but the drain was still blocked. The next day, Catron returned. This time, he discovered a far more disturbing item, a perfectly formed small piece of human hand, a finger, a knuckle, and skin. He immediately called the police. Detective Chief Inspector Peter J. arrived at Cranley Gardens. They examined the drains, confirming the gruesome nature of the blockage. J. and his team went door to door looking for the source. They quickly narrowed the search to the top-floor plat occupied by Dennis Nilsen, who was known to complain about the drains more than anyone. When Jay knocked on Nilsen's door, Nilsen was home. The detective explained the problem and the evidence they found in the drains. Jay later recalled the chilling simplicity of Nilsen's confession. After a moment of silence, Nilsen simply pointed to a stack of bags in the room and said, "It's in the wardrobe. It's human remains. I'll tell you everything. I have killed 15 or 16 men." The police found not only the remains in the flat, but also a horrifying, meticulous system of disassembly. Nilsen's confession was detailed, cold, and utterly comprehensive. The master killer, who had managed to evade suspicion for 5 years and had systematically hidden his crimes through complex dismemberment and burning, was ultimately brought down by a backed-up drain and a frustrated plumber doing his job. The Nilsen case proves that even the smallest physical failure can unravel the largest crime. The killer's ego told him he could control the disposal, but he couldn't control physics. Similarly, the next killer on our list was meticulous, anonymous, and communicated only through coded, terrifying threats. He hid his identity for 17 years, but he too
couldn't control the ego that drove him to publish a manifesto, a document that became the sole key to his identity. But let's hear your thoughts on this astonishing case. Comment below. What small detail do you think is key to solving a cold case? Number 6. Theodore Kaczynski, Unabomber, the Brothers Tip. The date? April 3rd, 1996. The event? Arrest following his brother's recognition of the manifesto's specific language and ideas. The resolution? The killer's demand for publication led his family to identifying him to the FBI. For nearly 2 decades, the United States was terrorized by a mysterious bomber who targeted academics, airlines, and computer store owners. The perpetrator became known as the Unabomber, a name derived from the
FBI's investigation code name Unabomb, University and Airline Bomber. The Unabomber's attacks were devastatingly effective and seemingly random, killing 3 people and injuring 23 others between 1978 and 1995. But what made the case so difficult was the bomber's total physical isolation. He built his complex, handcrafted devices in a tiny remote cabin in Montana, leaving virtually no forensic trail. He wasn't caught by a wiretap, a fingerprint, or a stakeout. He was caught by his own arrogance and his desperate need to be heard. In 1995, the Unabomber escalated his campaign by sending a 35,000-word essay titled Industrial Society and Its Future to the New York Times and the Washington Post. He offered to stop the bombings if the essay was published in full. The FBI and the Attorney General Janet Reno faced an agonizing decision. Should they give in to the terrorists' demands? They decided that the immediate need to stop the bombings and the remote chance that the document contained identifying information outweighed the risk of capitulation. The manifesto was published in full in September 1995. Millions of Americans read the strange, dense, and deeply ideological critique of modern technology and the industrial system. But 2 readers, in particular, read it with a growing sense of dread: David Kaczynski and his wife Linda. David Kaczynski, a former social worker living a simple life, had long worried about his older brother, Theodore, an extremely intelligent, highly educated former math professor who had retreated to a reclusive life in the wilderness. Theodore was paranoid and deeply disturbed by society. As David and Linda read the manifesto, they were chilled by the overlap between the document's theories and Theodore's own beliefs, which he had expressed to them in letters over the years. The ideology was a match, but the final, terrifying confirmation came from the language itself. Theodore Kaczynski possessed a unique and recognizable writing style. David noticed specific phrases, unusual metaphors, and distinctive word choices in the published document that he had only ever heard his brother use. The final piece of evidence was a copy of an older essay Theodore had written, which contained passages that were virtually identical to sections of the manifesto. David Kaczynski was now certain his own brother was the Unabomber. The decision David faced was horrific: turn in his own brother and sentence him to a lifetime in prison, or allow the bombings to continue. David, racked with guilt and responsibility, chose the former. He contacted the FBI and provided them with Theodore's past letters. The comparison was undeniable. The distinctive syntax, the specific phrasing, and the core ideology were an exact match for the writing found in the manifesto. The FBI now had a lead, one they had never been able to generate in 17 years of forensic work. The FBI on April 3, 1996, descended on Theodore Kaczynski's remote cabin. Inside, they found the very instruments of his terror: detailed journals, bomb-making equipment, and a fully completed, ready-to-mail bomb. The Unabomber, the man who had perfected the art of leaving no trace, was caught because of the single, massive document he published, a document meant to broadcast his genius to the world, but which instead acted as a detailed public handwriting analysis that only his family could solve. His intellectual arrogance became his downfall. Theodore Kaczynski, a man determined to disconnect from society, was brought down by the one tie he couldn't cut:
his family. But what about the killer who had no ties, who operated like a ghost across multiple US states, executing victims with terrifying efficiency? This man was a chameleon, a nomad, and a true psychopath, and he was only caught because a simple traffic investigation connected him to a local murder he thought was too trivial to matter. That investigation led to an interrogation that unlocked a national killing spree. Stay with us for the shocking case of Israel Keyes, but first, tell us in the comments, do you think the FBI was right to publish the Manifesto? Number 5. Israel Keyes, the trivial traffic stop. The date, March 2012. The event, arrest after a routine investigation connected him to a local murder. The resolution, a local case in Anchorage led police to his vehicle and cellular data, exposing his national-scale killing method. In the annals of American serial crime, Israel Keyes stands out as a unique and horrifying figure. Unlike the others on this list, Keyes did not operate in a single city or state. He was a nomad, a construction contractor who traveled the country, carrying out meticulously planned, geographically dispersed abductions and murders. He had no type, no fixed hunting ground, and left zero physical connection between himself and his victims. From his own later confession, Keyes is known to have killed at least 11 people across the country, but the number may be higher. His spree ended not because of a grand FBI operation, but because he became impatient and sloppy on one seemingly trivial case in Anchorage, Alaska. In February 2012, Keyes was in Anchorage. He had run out of cash and decided to commit a local crime to fund his next adventure. He broke into a coffee stand, abducted the 18-year-old barista Samantha Koenig, and later murdered her. Keyes thought this local, opportunistic murder would be too small to draw national attention, especially since he planned to make it look like a simple kidnapping for ransom. He sent a ransom demand to the family, telling them to deposit money into Koenig's account. He even took a picture of Koenig's body and sent it to the family's phone using a highly secure encryption application. His final mistake was born of this desperate financial need. After receiving the ransom money, Keyes used Koenig's debit card multiple times, first in Anchorage and then on a massive, winding road trip across the country toward Texas and eventually New York. Anchorage police weren't chasing a serial killer. They were chasing a kidnapper, but the relentless pursuit of the debit card transactions created a powerful, undeniable trail. Investigators used the card data, ATM surveillance footage, and crucially, cell phone data that automatically pinged towers along his route. The critical break came in Lufkin, Texas. Investigators identified the specific truck Keyes was driving at an ATM after a cash withdrawal. They issued a warning for the vehicle's license plate. In March 2012, Texas state troopers spotted the vehicle and pulled it over for a routine traffic stop. The driver was Israel Keyes. His arrest was initially for the kidnapping of Samantha Koenig, but when investigators tracked his cell phone data and compared it to the timelines of his earlier unsolved murders, the horrifying national scope of his crimes became clear. Keyes quickly realized the game was up. He confessed, revealing his entire system of murder kits and national travel. His confession detailed crimes in Washington, Vermont, and New York. The man who had carefully constructed a life of anonymity for years was undone by the smallest details, the $500 cash withdrawal he made in Lufkin, Texas, and the corresponding cell phone ping that showed his precise location. He had successfully evaded justice for over a decade by being a ghost, but he was brought down when he made a desperate, real-world transaction. Israel Keyes' confession confirmed that the smallest slip-up can expose the largest web of evil. But what about the case that went cold for 20 years, a killer whose identity was known to police but couldn't be proven? This is a story of victims dragged from rivers, of an entire community terrorized, and a killer who thought he was free because the science of the 1980s was too primitive. Next, we unveil how a single preserved drop of bodily fluid decades old caught the Green River Killer. But before that, like and share this video if you're gripping your seat right now. Number 4. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, the DNA match. The date, November 30th, 2001. The event, arrest after cold case detectives matched preserved DNA with modern forensic testing. The resolution, semen samples collected and preserved in the 1980s were retested using advanced DNA technology, conclusively linking Ridgway to the murders. The area around the Green River in King County, Washington, became a dumping ground for the victims of the Green River Killer in the early 1980s. This predator targeted marginalized and vulnerable women, many of them runaways or sex workers, and quickly became the most prolific serial killer in American history, with a confirmed victim count of 49. The investigation was massive, intense, and for 20 years, tragically fruitless. By 1984, the sheer number of victims and the lack of forensic technology meant the trail went cold. From the start, the police were close. A truck painter named Gary Ridgway was interviewed in 1983 and again in 1987. He failed a polygraph and was identified as a suspect due to his proximity to the victims and his habits. But in the 1980s, police could not definitively place him at the crime scenes. The science simply wasn't there. Ridgway, believing he was untouchable and protected by the primitive technology of the 1980s, continued to live a normal life, working his job at Kenworth Truck Company. He stopped the killings, but his arrogance remained. The case became a haunting
symbol of failure for King County. But in the late 1990s, the police established a new, determined cold case unit. Their focus was singular: re-examine every single piece of preserved evidence using the miraculous breakthroughs in DNA technology. This was the pivotal moment. Decades earlier, police detectives had meticulously and thankfully preserved biological evidence, semen and saliva samples, collected from the bodies of 3 victims: Marie Malvar, Carol Ann Hartzell, and Marcia Chapman. In the 1980s, this evidence was virtually useless. By the early 2000s, it represented the best chance for justice. Cold case detectives sent the preserved evidence to the King County Sheriff's Crime Lab. They applied polymerase chain reaction, PCR technique, that allows forensic scientists to amplify even the smallest, most degraded samples of DNA. The results were undeniable. In 2001, the DNA profile extracted from the preserved biological material from all 3 women was conclusively identified as belonging to the same single male. But they still needed a match. They ran the profile through the state's DNA database. The killer's DNA was not in the system, but because Ridgway had been a prime suspect back in 1987, police had taken a saliva sample from him during that initial interview. That sample had been carefully stored, tucked away in a dusty file for 14 years. Detectives retrieved the 1987 sample, which had been taken under the pretense of testing for hair and fiber evidence, and they ran the old saliva sample against the newly generated DNA profile from the crime scenes. It was an exact match. On November 30th, 2001, Gary Ridgway was arrested in his workplace parking lot. He was charged with 4 counts of aggravated first-degree murder, and the arrest of the Green River Killer made global headlines. Ridgway was brought down not by a new witness or a sudden slip of the tongue, but by the relentless evolution of science. The tiny, microscopic remnants of his presence, which he had left in the 1980s thinking they were meaningless, became the ironclad evidence that secured his conviction and forced him to confess to dozens of murders. His mistake wasn't the evidence itself, it was the hubris of believing that the technology of 1983 would remain stagnant forever. Ridgway's story is a powerful testament to the persistence of science and the tenacity of cold case detectives. But while DNA solved the Green River case decades later, another killer was operating right under the nose of Chicago authorities in the 1970s, hiding his horrors in a brightly lit suburban home. This man was a respected local figure, a party clown, and a political operator. His downfall came not from DNA, but from the oldest trick in the book, a simple missing person report that led police to his house. We'll uncover the chilling end of John Wayne Gacy after the break. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from. Number 3. John Wayne Gacy, the missing boy. The date? December 21st, 1978. The event? Arrest following a missing person report that led police to search his property. The resolution? Follow-up on a single missing boy's disappearance ultimately forced police to search the killer's house and discover the evidence. The name John Wayne Gacy is synonymous with the absolute terror of the suburban monster, the man who doubled as Pogo the Clown for children's parties while maintaining a secret, utterly depraved life as a serial killer beneath his ranch-style home in Norwood Park Township, Chicago. From 1972 to 1978, Gacy murdered at least 33 young men and boys, burying most of their bodies in the cramped crawl space beneath his house. He was a local success story, a small business owner, a political organizer, and a man who projected an image of robust, civic-minded decency. His entire methodology depended on one chilling concept: no one would look for the victims. He targeted young men who were often runaways, street hustlers, or those from marginalized backgrounds, figuring their disappearances would be overlooked by an indifferent public and under-resourced police. He was nearly right. But on December 11, 1978, Gacy made his final, fatal mistake. He lured and murdered 15-year-old Robert Piest. Robert Piest was not a marginal figure. He was a popular, employed local teenager who worked at a pharmacy in the area. When Piest failed to return home from work that evening, his family immediately and aggressively pursued a missing person report. The missing person case was quickly assigned to Detective Dave Hatchmeister. The last known person Piest had been seen talking to was John Wayne Gacy, who was doing some minor construction work at the pharmacy. The police had reason to be suspicious of Gacy. He had a prior conviction for sexual assault from the early 1960s, which meant he was on probation and subject to surveillance. On December 12th, Detective Hatchmeister and his partner went to Gacy's house to question him. Gacy was calm, cooperative, and smooth. He allowed them to look around briefly, but he refused to consent to a full search of the premises. This was the start of a cat-and-mouse game. Over the next week, the pressure mounted. The police placed Gacy under intense 24-hour surveillance. Gacy tried to lure the officers away, driving them on ridiculous long chases across Chicago, but the detectives stuck with him. The police were getting desperate. They knew Gacy was the last person to see Piest, and they knew something was wrong with the house, but they lacked the probable cause for a full search warrant. The break came from an entirely unexpected source: the smell. Due to the decomposition of bodies buried directly beneath the floorboards of his house, Gacy's house had a strange, lingering odor, a smell Gacy dismissed as a plumbing problem or a dead rat. On December 20th, 1978, the police obtained a search warrant based on the suspicion of a potential probation violation and the increasing reports of the strange odor emanating from the house. The subsequent search quickly zeroed in on the crawl space. Police noticed an unusual pattern of digging and disturbance. They pulled back a section of the flooring and shined a light into the darkness. What they found was a horror show: the bodies of multiple young men, tightly wrapped in plastic, buried in the shallow soil. Gacy was arrested the following day, December 21st, 1978. When confronted with the overwhelming evidence, he cracked and confessed to the murder of Robert Piest and dozens of other young men, meticulously mapping out where he had buried his victims. Gacy's monstrous career was ended not by his prior crimes, but by the fact that he chose to murder a boy whose family and community were certain to demand answers. The aggressive pursuit of a single missing person report tore down the wall of indifference Gacy had relied on for years. Gacy's arrogance allowed the police to get close enough to smell the truth.
But what about the monster who kept his victims alive, locked away for years, hidden in a beautiful, otherwise normal suburban home? This case involves a killer whose captivity plot was so perfect it might never have been solved had not one of his victims, one incredibly brave young woman, managed a chaotic, desperate escape. This is the ultimate moment of a victim saving herself. Next, we count down to the terrifying case of the Cleveland kidnappings. Don't forget to subscribe. Number 2. Ariel Castro, Cleveland Kidnappings, The Escape. The date, May 6, 2013. The event, rescue and arrest after one captive escaped and called 911. The resolution, the victim's desperate flight and cry for help brought police to the house, freeing the captives and arresting the kidnapper. For over 10 years, the quiet residential street of Seymour Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio, hid a secret of unimaginable horror. Inside a modest 2-story house, 3 young women, Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, were held captive by Ariel Castro, a local school bus driver, musician, and neighbor. The 3 women had been abducted separately between 2002 and 2004, held against their will and subjected to years of abuse. Castro had created a meticulously controlled environment of terror, thick chains, padlocks on every door, and the chilling illusion of normalcy that fooled his neighbors and family. He had created a system he believed was foolproof. He rarely left the house completely empty, often running quick errands and trusting the extensive security measures to hold the women. He had successfully maintained this terrifying plot for years. His biggest mistake was the decision to leave a single critical door unlocked on the afternoon of May 6, 2013. On that Monday afternoon, Ariel Castro left the house. For a reason that remains unclear, perhaps simple carelessness, haste, or arrogance, he failed to properly lock the inner door that led from the main living space to the garage. The outer storm door was also slightly ajar. Amanda Berry, who had been held captive for nearly 11 years and had given birth to Castro's daughter while in captivity, saw the opportunity. It was the smallest gap in the walls of her prison she had seen in over a decade. Driven by desperation and the desire to save her child, she threw her entire weight against the unlocked inner door. It swung open. Amanda rushed to the heavy secured front door and began screaming for help, pushing her arm through the bottom of the door.
A neighbor, Charles Ramsey, heard the frantic screaming. He ran over and saw Berry's hand sticking out. When she screamed, "Help me! I'm Amanda Berry. I've been kidnapped and I've been here a long time," Ramsey and another neighbor immediately kicked in the bottom panel of the wooden storm door, tearing it open enough for Berry to squeeze out. Berry, free for the first time in 11 years, immediately ran to Ramsey's phone and made a frantic 911 call. Amanda Berry on 911 call. "Help me, I'm Amanda Berry. I need police. I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years and I'm here. I'm free now." This single, chaotic, desperate 911 call brought the police to Seymour Avenue. When officers arrived, they found Gina DeJesus and Michelle Knight still inside the house. All 3 women were rescued, along with Berry's 6-year-old daughter. Ariel Castro was later apprehended driving through his neighborhood. The reign of terror was over. The capture of the perpetrator and the rescue of the women was not the result of a long, sophisticated investigation or a meticulous stakeout. It was the result of a kidnapper's single, momentary lapse in security, a door left unlocked, and the incredible bravery of one victim seizing that split-second opportunity to escape and call for help. Castro's plot, designed to keep 3 lives locked away in darkness, was broken by the light of a single unlocked door. The bravery of Amanda Berry brought one monster to justice. But our final case involves a mistake so unthinkable, so shocking, it reveals a betrayal that eclipses all others. This murder was committed in 1986, and for over 2 decades the killer walked free, protected by her position of power. She was a respected officer of the law.
She was a female police detective who murdered her partner's wife, and she was only caught because a detective found a way to link her to a discarded piece of trash. This is the ultimate final slip-up, and the most dramatic betrayal of trust in this countdown. Stay tuned for the stunning case of Stephanie Lazarus. Number 1. Stephanie Lazarus, the discarded cup. The date? June 5, 2009. The event? Cold case arrest after detectives covertly collected the killer's discarded DNA. The resolution? A DNA match from a discarded item to a 23-year-old bite mark sample led to the arrest of an active-duty police detective. The murder of Sherry Rasmussen in 1986 was a brutal, bewildering tragedy. Rasmussen, a 29-year-old nurse, had been found dead in her Van Nuys, Los Angeles condominium. She had been beaten, shot 3 times, and brutally bitten on the arm. The case went cold almost immediately. Initially, the LAPD focused on the theory of a botched robbery, dismissing the desperate pleas of Sherry's father that a woman his daughter knew had been threatening her. That woman was Stephanie Lazarus. Lazarus was an LAPD officer, a respected detective in the highly specialized art theft detail. She was also the former romantic partner of Sherry Rasmussen's new husband, John Ruetten. Lazarus was reportedly obsessed with Ruetten. She had shown up uninvited at his wedding and had reportedly warned him that if he couldn't be with her, she would make sure he wouldn't be with anyone else. In 1986, the LAPD refused to seriously consider the possibility that one of their own was involved. The case lay dormant, a file covered in dust, for 23 years. In 2004, the LAPD formed a dedicated cold case unit. In 2009, a detective named Greg Stearns pulled the Rasmussen file. He read the reports, noted the obvious clues, and focused on the single piece of physical evidence that had been overlooked for decades: a bite mark left on Sherry Rasmussen's arm. Stearns theorized that the bite was a defensive wound and contained the killer's saliva, a source of precious DNA. He located the original forensic slide containing the saliva swab from 1986 and submitted it for modern analysis. The results came back: a clean, full female DNA profile. The profile was run through the National CODIS database. No match. Stearns' investigation led him to focus on John Ruetten's complicated romantic past. He reviewed the original interview tapes and saw the name that had been ignored for 23 years: Stephanie Lazarus. The cold case team now faced the ultimate dilemma. Their prime suspect was an active, decorated LAPD detective. They could not simply demand a DNA sample. Any direct confrontation would alert her and risk the destruction of evidence. The team needed to be invisible. They needed to collect her DNA covertly. For 2 weeks, undercover detectives tracked Lazarus. On June 1, 2009, she went to a Costco in the San Fernando Valley. She went inside, purchased a soda, walked out, and casually tossed the used paper cup into an outside trash can. This was her final, devastating mistake. The surveillance team immediately retrieved the cup. It was sent to the crime lab. The DNA extracted from the saliva on the rim of the discarded Costco cup was run against the DNA profile extracted from the 1986 bite mark swab. The results were irrefutable. It was a perfect match. Stephanie Lazarus was arrested on June 5, 2009 at her desk in the LAPD headquarters. The detective who had built a life on the facade of law and order was arrested by her own department for a murder she had committed 23 years earlier. The evidence was the discarded cup. The tiny, microscopic cells she left behind on a piece of trash were enough to pierce the shield of her badge and the years of her silence. She was convicted of first-degree murder in 2012. The 10 cases we've explored, spanning over a century and countless miles, reveal a singular, terrifying truth. The criminal mind, no matter how meticulous, is fundamentally driven by arrogance.
Ted Bundy thought he could outrun a stolen car charge. Dennis Rader couldn't resist the urge to communicate, trusting a floppy disk over the simple absence of technology. Gary Ridgway believed the laws of science would stand still for 20 years. John Wayne Gacy misjudged the love of a single family. And Stephanie Lazarus was undone by a simple, discarded paper cup. In every case, the killer's plan was sound, until their ego or a moment of carelessness created a tiny, critical opening. These are the small, unexpected breaks, the forgotten parking ticket, the backed-up drain, the brother who finally speaks, the single, unlocked door. Proving that the system of justice, however slow, is ultimately resilient. For every master plan, there is a simple mistake waiting to expose the truth. We are left with the chilling but comforting fact that in the war between darkness and light, the light sometimes wins because the darkness trips over its own shoelaces. Thank you for watching this deep dive into history's single most critical mistakes. If you found this journey compelling and informative, please subscribe for more investigations into the untold stories of crime and history. And let us know in the comments, which of these 10 incredible slip-ups do you find the most shocking?